Hi, my name's Will and welcome to the drum room for today. We were supposed to have a City of Souls interview today, but the day of recording is actually Mother's Day. So everyone suddenly realized at the last minute that they wouldn't be able to make it, apart from one guy, and that is Corey. Hi, Corey.
How's it going?
Good. Apparently his mum's down in Napier, so...
She had a phone call, and it was a great phone call on the way here. But it just shows you us drummers, we're always on the move, making the time.
Distant from our mothers.
When we have to be.
Cool. So we figured that maybe a good thing to do instead of doing the City of Souls thing is to do a Corey thing. So cool. We'll talk about Corey and his musical exploits and find out what he's doing and what he's been doing recently and such, and fill up the time that way.
Sounds good.
Cool.
Sure, there's tons of people interested in drums, and there's enough drummers out there, that's for sure, huh?
Indeed. So what you been up to recently?
At the moment, with City of Souls, we're trying to finish up the album. So that's been a lot of this year has been dedicated to that. But now that all the drum tracks are done, we're in the overdub stage with a few vocal things and then mixing and mastering.
How many tracks did it end up being?
We haven't taken anything out, but there's a total of around 15 to 16 songs. So it's going to be a marathon of an album. So
it's kind of like everyone's been waiting for this album to appear. Like I was doing some research last night because I don't know the history of City of Souls. So I watched some interviews from 2015, 2016, and you're talking about the album coming out, and it hasn't happened yet. So I was kind of wondering if I should bring it up today.
Yeah, well, that's what we want to talk about, man.
Or if it was a sore point.
We actually haven't even started recording yet. I'm just messing with you. It's actually almost done. And we can actually... get some tracks out there soon, so if you guys see this interview while it's fresh, keep an eye out for like a drum playthrough of maybe the next single called Ferryman. So those interviews, we kind of were getting close, but we kind of took a bit of a time off of the recording to rewrite.
Right.
And we really wanted the album to come out with a bang, being the debut album.
Maybe City of Souls can come in later on. And
totally.
Just before it drops or as it drops, and we can do this again.
Yeah, they'll answer all the real in-depth questions of where the name came from and some of the art concepts that we're dealing with for the kind of artwork for the album and stuff.
Cool.
So yeah, that's been the main thing. But I've actually been doing a lot of session work as well. So a bit of drum and bass, which is cool, from one of your friends we were mentioning before,
from
Chris Shetland, yeah. Old Cog Studios, based out west, which is cool. And some singer-songwriter stuff as well. So that'll be taking up a lot of my time. And maybe a few like kind of metal projects in the works as well.
City of Souls is now like your main main band? It's
we've been pretty busy. We kind of wrapped up a lot of shows with some international support. So we've kind of built our way up from starting off doing our first gig at King's Arms to touring with Devilskin, Villainy, and then we got the Bring Me the Horizon, which was pretty cool, and that was just a direct support, so we felt very fortunate they chose us, only having like 3 singles out, which is cool.
You guys did a lot on 3 singles.
We really rode those 3 singles to the ground, you know, and that's the thing, like as a band, you do need to keep very active, unless you're Tool, you know, and you kind of go into the shadows, and I guess we've done a little bit of that. And there will be some kind of Tool elements on the album, which is kind of cool.
Are you a Tool guy, yeah?
Yeah, totally, man. What about you? Danny Carey?
Well, I'm a little older than you, so I mean, yeah, but I mean, I listened to Anima and stuff when it came out.
Yeah.
But I was sort of like maybe the generation before that was sort of, I was brought up on Judas Priest and Metallica and Slayer and all that sort of stuff.
Sure.
I mean, Tool came in when I was about 20.
Well, that was like me as well. Like I started off with Metallica for the heavy stuff. Then kind of went into the Slipknot, Mudvayne, kind of new metal vibe. And then I found Tool later, you know, and then got into the progressive stuff, like really crazy stuff. Like, have you heard of Spastic Inc.?
Yeah.
Or, what's another one? Spiral Architect?
Yeah,
all that crazy prog stuff. But the drummer I was cranking with, that one was Bobby Jim Sombach.
Okay.
Have you heard of him?
Yeah, I could never pronounce his name, though.
I'm probably not getting that right
It's
myself.
a Polish,
so-
I think it's a Polish surname.
Yeah. He's insane though, man. Really, really good technical drummer. Fully left-handed as well. I think he does all the open hand. But I think he might have even said in an article that he taught himself that.
Right.
Because he wanted to take it to the next level and open things up.
I was talking to Will from Death Angel. After they finished playing, he came up,
I mean,
came upstairs to talk to somebody, and I sort of just said hello to him. And he plays open-handed, like a left-handed drummer from the waist up. But he said he's right-footed, and it was basically because when he was at school, like there were other drummers that were also at school, and nobody wanted to like readjust the right-hand drum set. And they were like, you got to like learn how to play right-handed. And he was like, nah, it doesn't feel right. So he ended up playing left-handed, but had to adjust to play right feet.
totally, yeah. Well, that's
Quite weird to watch him play. It's
a common issue, I guess, with being left-handed. Do you go full left-handed and have to be that guy that rearranges the whole kit, or do you just keep it right-footed but do the open hand?
especially when you're sharing kits at gigs and
Just
stuff.
well,
pain
you
in
got
the
the
ass.
countdown, right?
Oh, they could be like you. Just bring your entire drum set and just
It
haul
does
it
make
on
it
stage
easy.
every time.
If you can convince them, hey, it's easier to use my whole kit and just do it, then it is a nice treat, you know. Nothing like your own kit.
Yeah, I agree. I usually let everyone use mine because I'm so.
Generous.
Well, no, just picky.
Just want to use yours. So secretly, you're
I'll
like,
use mine,
I could
yeah.
use my kit.
It's
these bastards.
It's like false generosity, you know. Oh, please help.
Yeah.
Please help yourself. But really, I'm just saying, please help myself.
Do you inspect it before you play, though? You're like, how many hits of these guys hit on the rim and where's damage? You watch them put the snare in so they don't hit the rack toms?
It's too late for that. It's all too late.
That's
So,
what goes first, isn't it? The
Yeah.
racks?
yeah,
That
unfortunately.
snare rubbing action?
It's done pretty well though.
No, it looks great, man. Old Tama, is it?
It's a Thomas
Hyperdrive or?
Yeah, Hyperdrive.
Yeah.
I like the Shadow Toms.
Yeah, totally, man. I got my drum kit custom designed by Tama when they hooked me up with the endorsements and stuff, thanks to Music Works. And
Is it a Star Classic?
it's a Star Classic Babinga, and I didn't want to go full shallow tom, so I kind of went in between. So it's not as shallow as that, but it is shallower than the normal sizes.
So is it just a Babinga or a Birch Babinga?
Just pure Babinga,
Okay.
which I find acoustically quieter than a hybrid of the Birch. The Birch adds a little bit more projection. So acoustically, you're slamming this thing, and you're like, where's all the volume? But if you have the monitoring, you know, that's why I use in-ears, and if you can crank up some monitors, that thing just sounds huge, you know?
I saw an interview with Simon Phillips, and he was talking about his drum set, and apparently that's all Babinga as
Yeah,
well. And he did remark on the same thing, like, you know, it's a lot quieter, but when you put it under scrutiny, under microphones and stuff, it sounds
It's a
so
tight
good.
sound, yeah, and you get that really low tightness. Speaking of Simon Phillips from Toto, he left his hi-hat here, and I now use that as my main hi-hat.
Really?
So I've got Simon Phillips hi-hat
So
stand.
Simon Phillips plays for Toto now.
Well, he did for a while. I think
really?
he's still in Toto, but the guy who gets all the kind of repping is Jeff Picaro.
Yeah, Jeff Power, yeah.
With that mean Rosanna
Yeah.
shuffle beat, you know. Yeah, that if any drummer wants to get the shuffle down, do that song.
It's a hard song.
It's tough to nail, but if you can get it, you've got the shuffle.
Sure.
Yeah, but it's crazy. He had his hi-hat stand with the legs removed, so it just sits upright. So I have to use a device from a cymbal stand clamped in. But the beauty of that is there's no legs to get in the way of the second kick or the bass drum pedal.
I used to have an old, I think it was a Tama stand back in the 90s, the very early 90s, that basically had no legs at all. And it sort of came off the bass drum as a bass drum clamp.
That's it. So I didn't want to clamp it to the actual bass drum hoop because I
Right.
didn't want to mess it up.
So you
So
clamped it to something else.
Just
okay.
did my own contraption.
Okay.
It looks weird, but it does work.
Cool.
And it does make a hell of a issue for the sound guys putting the mics in. So you guys should consider that. Where you place your stuff has to work with the mics. It's just that one, really. Everything else is kind of positioned good for those tom mics so the cymbals don't get in the way and stuff.
You're a full-time tutor.
Yep.
So tell us about that. Maybe you can find some more students.
Yeah, totally. From time to time, I'll go on tour for a while, and the students will slowly drop off, and you come back, and you've got a few slots in there, and you're making your money from the teaching when you're not playing. So it is the bread and butter. So I can always do with more students. And
Sure.
I'm based out in Mount Ross School. So I got the home studio now. My background is kind of, I got a lot of schooling from like the Drum City kind of area. And Michael Franklin Brown was my teacher.
Really?
Yeah. So,
There's Michael Franklin Brown drumsticks right
oh
here.
man, great sticks, huh?
Yeah.
And he's got that red as well, which reminds you of Joey Jordenson's
Yeah.
Pro Mark sticks.
Although these are no longer made.
And there's no blood in those sticks.
There's no blood.
Joey did the blood in his. You see that?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how hygienic that was, but he got it in there.
Weird. So Michael Franklin Brown was your teacher?
Yeah, he was my teacher, and he kind of was just working one weekend in Drum City when they were supposed to be closed, just doing something, and he offered me some lessons and showed me a double stroke roll, and I was like, whoa, I got to learn that. So he kind of helped me develop a lot of the different styles and genres of the drumming, from like African beats to jazz, and really expanded my kind of progressive kind of listening to all the different artists like King Crimson and mainly like Frank Zappa and even some Miles Davis kind of jazz stuff.
Okay.
Which I really gained to appreciate, and just try to play along to those drummers and emulate their styles, you know. Vinny Colaiuta especially, insane drummer. Yeah, well, that's it, And you listen to it enough, you really want to try and see how much you can replicate that as a challenge, But yeah, so got all those lessons for a good maybe 5 years almost, and ended up joining 8 Foot Sativa when I was about 17. So just kind of toured with those guys for a while, and kind of wasn't doing too much teaching for a little bit. And then when I kind of got into Fornax Chemica and more of these progressive bands, started to pick up the clientele, and just working at Drum City eventually helped go from a kind of dude in the drum shop to teaching upstairs, Started off like part-time, would do like a full day of, working in the store, tuning up drums, checking out all the cool modern drummer DVDs in the background, all the gospel chops and all that. And then would do like maybe 2 or 3 hours of students,
Right.
And then eventually just said, well, I should just practice during the day and teach at night, instead of working the drum shop. So kind of slowly progressed into it. Took a long time, but after 15 years of teaching, you can hopefully do that full time.
Sure.
Yeah. And a few schools has been another thing, Can be tough, though, working with some kids who are in group lessons and they get a bit wild, You got to like say, hey, listen, if you're good, maybe we'll give you a prize or some candy or something, And next thing you know, the kids start showing up with their sticks, their folders, and they want to be good.
Right. What are your plans for the rest of the year?
Funny enough, City Souls will have that album out, so we'll do a tour and all that. That'll be the highlight. But also a band that I am in called Fornax Chemica. Have had some time off, and we've been working on like an album totally different from our first album now that we have a singer. And it's kind of like more of a fusion of, I guess you could say, 70s rock with kind of more new age kind of experimental rock. So like Black Sabbath mixed with Mars Volta, and then just all sorts of weird stuff in between. But still a lot of odd time signatures.
I did hear a little bit of it, actually.
Yeah, you ran into our bass player at the Sepultura gig, yeah?
Yeah, well, actually, I run into him all the time because I sometimes drive for drive for shows, and he's driving too.
Oh, for sure.
So we're kind of, I think it was it the Killers or something? I can't remember who it was. But we were both driving for them, and we were sort of just hanging around outside, as you do, because they're playing, they're in the green room, and like...
What else are you going to do, right?
They're chatting and drinking and talking to girls, so you're like, okay, so you're outside, you're waiting for like an hour. And so he's like, oh, you want to hear some of the Fornax Chemica stuff? Because I hadn't really heard any. And it's like, yeah, cool. So he played us some of the... I mean, it wasn't mastered yet.
Yeah.
It was just sort of mixed. So.
Well, the guys ended up getting it mastered with a guy that focused more on like kind of rap projects and had a very old school analog vibe.
Yeah, it's some dude in the States, isn't it?
Well, they got it mixed by the guy who does the Mars Volta mixing. Sean Anderson, I think it is.
And he's really, really pedantic, and he's like, oh, I'll do some more. It's not quite right.
Well, he really helped the band out by just doing way more than what we paid for. You
Yeah.
know, he knew we were a smaller band from New Zealand, really was into what we were doing, and just did a lot of extra time on it. The band's still very sci-fi inspired, you know, and a lot of the lyrical content now can do that. Before being an instrumental, it's hard to really push across any themes without
Sure.
kind of any lyrical content.
Indeed.
But now they're getting it remastered by the Marilyn Manson producer,
Okay.
just to give it more punch and more like attack, less of that kind of vintage vibe, you know.
So that'll be out this year, will it?
If all things go well, you just never know with these deadlines of albums, you know. Can take what with the City of Soul stuff. Yeah, it's coming out this year. 2 years later, you know. But that album with Fornax has been, I think, 8 years almost in the making.
Really?
So it's been a while.
All right. Well, that's about all the time we have for today. Is there anything else you'd like to add to that? Any last comments?
Just for you guys out there inspiring to go full time with the music, just keep pushing it, keep getting yourself out there, keep researching, and never stop practicing, you know. A really good band usually consists of really good musicians. So push the level. And thank you, Will, for having me.
Cool. Thanks for coming in.
Appreciate it, man.
And
Hopefully the band will be in next time.
Thanks for signing that drum skin for me. I'll put it up on the wall behind me
Sweet.
for next time. Cool, man.
Sounds good, bro. Cheers.
Good to see you.
You too, man.
Thanks.